Hello, and welcome to episode 581 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan, as always, joined by Evan Silva, and today it is part 2 of Man vs. Machine. For this, of course, we are joined by the leader of the spreadsheet socialists, Mike Leone. How's it going today?
It's going well. It's a good day to see some Evan Silva capitulation.
Indeed. Evan, how's it going today?
It's going better than it was yesterday because I spent, or the previous 2 days, because I spent the last 2 days essentially dry vacuuming my basement because we had insane flash flooding in the Chicago area, which almost wiped out this stupid NASCAR race that they held in the streets of Chicago. They had to shut down the entire city. I mean, it was crazy, but I think I had a buddy helping me, and I think we got it dried out pretty good. So I'm feeling much better today than I was the previous 2 days.
The people will want to know, did you actually do the basement yourself, or did you hire a kid from the neighborhood to dry your basement out?
No, my buddy, who's a badass worker, volunteered. He was like, yo, man, I heard, in your area, that there was a ton of flooding because the infrastructure of what? Because the infrastructure,
no one, you've lost your credibility on this, but no one believes this.
Because he couldn't have done it by himself. Okay. But the infrastructure of my neighborhood was not originally built. It was built in 1920. It was not built to support as many homes as are now in the area. So tons of people's basement got water in them. I've actually had it worse than it was. But we got it fixed.
All right. That's good. I'm glad you're in recovery and good spirits. On today's show, I'll be once again presiding as your honorable judge as these two debate their fantasy football rankings, a bunch of discrepancies between Silva's personal top 150 and the projection-based rankings we have on the site. Please listen to part 1 for more of an explanation on exactly what goes into those projections and rankings that we do have up on the site. Before we get into it today, reminder that our friends at Underdog are running some of the biggest best ball contests, the biggest best ball contest in the history of best ball, $25 buy-in, $15 million prize pool in Best Ball Mania 4. We have rankings and content for that contest and all the other contests that are up on Underdog right now. If you have never tried best ball on Underdog, the time is now. $100 matching deposit bonus if you use promo code ETR. That's promo code ETR at underdogfantasy.com. All right. In part 1, we hit on a lot of guys that the machine was higher on than Silva. In this episode, we're going to hit on guys who Silva is higher on than the machine. And we will start with one of the most controversial backfield situations of the offseason so far, of course, with the Vikings, Alexander Mattison and Ty Chandler. Silva is at 42nd overall. I'm sorry. Silva's at 24th overall on Alexander Mattison, machine 42nd. Silva's at 108 overall on Ty Chandler, machine 143. Silva, actually, we've heard Silva's Mattison take plenty of times already on this show. Let's have Leone go first with his Mattison and Ty Chandler take.
Yeah, I'm almost a little worried 42's high, and Silva's got him at 24, which is extremely high draft capital. Your confidence that Mattison is a 3-down back has to be so high to take him above really talented players like Devonta Smith, Chris Olave, Travis Etienne, Breece Hall. You have to be so confident that he's getting all these touches for the duration of the season. And I just don't have that confidence. Could it happen? Yeah, but it wouldn't be shocking if Mattison ceded touches to Ty Chandler. And then, so then you look at the Ty Chandler ranking. If you're that confident that Alexander Madison's getting these touches, how can you be so high on a handcuff running back like Ty Chandler? It doesn't really make too much sense to me. They also have Dwayne McBride, a rookie there, who, again, you have to have almost 100% confidence that dude's the clear number 3, and Ty Chandler's 2. Do I think this team could have a decent amount of high-value touches for the running backs? Absolutely. It's going to be a good offense. It's going to be a fun offense. But I just don't share that confidence that Mattison's the clear 1 and that Ty Chandler is the clear 2 and going to get number 1. It just doesn't quite work out for me.
All right. Silva, some strong points there from Leone. What do you got in response?
Well, when I do my rankings, my top 150, and when I'm drafting players, I don't really tie in backfield projections. I do independent evaluations of the ceiling and the floor case for each guy. So the fact that I'm high on both Ty Chandler and Alexander Mattison relative to ADP, like I'm totally fine with that because I think that they're both buys. And Alexander Mattison, I mean, I think that based on his usage in his past opportunities to be the Vikings' main back, has shown, or at least the coaching staffs have shown, that they're willing to feed him touches over and over and over again. He weighs 225 pounds. He can play in the passing game. I think the Vikings are going to score a lot of points this year. And then as it pertains to Ty Chandler, like I think that he's the clear number 2. Dwayne McBride, who Leone brought up, is a 7th-round rookie. 7th-round rookies are on the bubble immediately, so he almost doesn't even factor into me. And then Kenny Nwangwu, who we've talked about a little bit, is more of like a return specialist. So, and I mean, I kind of like the upside of Ty Chandler if something were to go down or if something were to happen to Alexander Mattison, and that's why I have him in the top 110. Alexander Mattison, I think, like I bet him 40-1 to lead the NFL in rushing. I think he could get 260 to 280 carries, again, based on how coaching staffs have used him in the past. And I believe that the coaching staffs believe that he is a true every down back. And I think that that's going to translate onto the field this season.
It's a tough ruling for me because I agree with a lot of Evan's points, and I especially agree on being ahead of market on him on Underdog, where he goes a ridiculously low, I think 59th overall. But man, I do not think that I could have him ranked where Evan has him ranked for Leone's points about you got to be really, really sure this dude is going to play like every single snap for him to go in the top 20s and be worth it, in my opinion. So I'm going to call it a draw here because I like Mattison and I like the argument Evan made, but I can't abide. I can't give Evan a win when he has him ranked in the 20s is the bottom line.
I'll tell you what. Go ahead.
I was just say philosophically, like I agree with Evan that you want to look at the players individually in terms of their floor ceiling, as opposed to like we have Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery both as bias at ADP. It's just you don't need to be that aggressive on these two guys to get them. You know, you're taking Ty Chandler as a backup ahead of like Brian Robinson, who's a starting running back. You know, or like guys we talked about in the last episode, Quentin Johnston.
I don't think that Brian Robinson is necessarily going to.
Oh, okay, well, Quentin Johnston, Jahan Dotson, like. You're taking a handcuff running back quite early.
And I think if Mattison were to go down, I don't think that it would be a full workload for Ty Chandler. I think he's like too small and too much of like a speed receiving back.
I'll tell you what, I did like to see actually Leone having Alexander Mattison at 42 gave me more confidence in Alexander Mattison because I thought that he was going to come out with Mattison like in the 50s or something like that. Having him at 42 makes me feel good about staying aggressive on Alexander Mattison. He doesn't have to stay at 24, okay? And really, in the interest of our audience, it would make sense to move him down just because he doesn't need to be that high above ADP. But again, in these early top 150s, I don't care about coming out guns blazing, and then they'll start to normalize as again I get more drafts under my belt and the ADPs normalize.
All right. Let's go to DJ Moore. DJ Moore, of course, is now a Chicago Bear. Machine is bearish on DJ Moore, 57th overall. Silva, very high on DJ Moore, 27th overall. Silva is more of the outlier here. I'll let him go first on DJ Moore, 27th overall.
It just all comes down to that I think that Justin Fields is going to take a really big leap this year. I have Justin Fields as a tier 1 quarterback. And DJ Moore as, I think wide receiver 15, something like that. And I think that those two rankings correlate. I like the way that the offensive line is coming together for the Bears. I think they could actually have a legitimately good offensive line. We talked about them last year entering the season as if they were going to have a bottom 5 offensive line. It actually wound up being about middle of the road. And now they're adding a first-round pick in Nate Davis, who's an ass-kicking right guard. Tevin Jenkins, who they used a really high pick on a couple years ago, he's kind of settled in as their starting left guard. They're getting back Braxton Jones, who I met at a Cubs game. He's really nice to my daughter. And he was a stud as a rookie out of Southern Utah. And then Cody Whitehair at center. I mean, I like their offensive line. And I think that one of the things that had been holding back Justin Fields as a passer was the fact that he needs a little bit extra time because he's a little bit slow of a processor and he's just kind of a little bit deliberate in the pocket. I think he's going to get that time, and I think DJ Moore is going to benefit. Again, you know what? I'm not going to capitulate because it keeps working against me. But, you know, I'm willing to have some compromise here and move DJ Moore down because, again, it's a situation where in the interest of our audience, we don't have to have DJ Moore ranked that high in order for us to get him. I do want him on my team this year.
So. All right. Leone, go ahead.
I mean, 27th overall is outrageous here. Let's look at the Chicago play calling. You know, we've got them increasing their pass rate from last season by 6 percentage points, from about 51% to 57%. We have them increasing their plays per game from about 58.5 to 61.5 plays per game. We have them with a 9.5% sack rate. Justin Fields took nearly a 15% sack rate last year. So we have them meaningfully improving in all three metrics that would help pass volume. And it's still
well, then what's wrong with your DJ Moore ranking?
And it's still, that's just my point. They have so far to go that it's still tough for DJ Moore to get there unless he's like a 30% target share guy. And even though the target competition like isn't great, like they do have guys who are going to play and like be like they're going to spread it out a little bit. I don't see him being a 30% target share guy. So either this team has to change so drastically. You know, Justin Fields has to improve so much as a passer. That's the other thing. Fields only completes 60% of his passes. So, I mean, we're looking at DJ Moore. It's going to take a lot.
Receivers were.
It's going to take a lot for DJ Moore to get over 100 targets. You're taking him at the 2-3 turn. You're taking him ahead of Devonta Smith and Chris Olave, who are absolute ballers. You want to talk about a guy too in terms of upside. I've been a huge DJ Moore stan for years, but he routinely scores like 4 touchdowns a year. Now you're putting on one of the team that has one of the lowest expected passing touchdowns in the entire league. Like there is so much risk.
All right.
Reward.
Stop the fight.
It. He's already dead.
He's already dead. Stop the fight. Oh, man. A victory by TKO for Leone on DJ Moore. My God. Stop the fight. Go back to the training. Yeah, I mean, I agree with Leone. DJ Moore. God, it's a stretch to think that Justin, like, and people keep comparing this DJ Moore thing to Devonta Smith and AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts. You know, Jalen Hurts, I think his passing at the NFL level going into last year had just shown so much more than Justin Fields had so far. So yeah, just that alone is enough for me to be a little bit wary on DJ Moore, not to mention all of their boomer ball stuff going on. All right. Rhamondre Stevenson, Machine 31, Silva 19. This is one that Silva's gotten into a little bit with Pat Thorman on our Resident Patriots expert. So we talked about that a little bit with the Thorman episode, but go ahead, Silva, on Rhamondre Stevenson, 19 overall.
Well, Thorman's argument, you know, is built on like a phantom idea that, you know, they're going to sign Leonard Fournette. And look, if they sign Leonard Fournette, like Rhamondre Stevenson is going to rocket down the rankings. I was listening to Mike Lombardi's podcast, GM Street, last night, and he was talking about how he thought he just brought up the possibility of the Patriots signing Dalvin Cook. I'm not going to build any like apprehension in any anticipation into my rankings of them signing a veteran running back. And instead, I'm going to wait for that to happen. And if that happens, then I move him down. That, you know, that's a strategy that can work and might not work. But I mean, I think that Rhamondre Stevenson is an every down back. I know he talked about how at the end of last season he wore down, and that's a little bit of a concern, but I think he is a true every down back. I think he's an awesome talent. You know, last year, the comparison I made was for him was to Derrick Henry, and he's better in the passing game than is Derrick Henry. Now, he didn't have a high yards per reception last year. I get that. But, I mean, I think that he's obviously a quality receiving back, and I think he's really good between the tackles. And this team is going to run the crap out of the ball. You know, there are like concerns that Mac Jones could lose his job to Bailey Zappi. You know, like I don't think that they trust their passing game. They're out here signing Devontae Parker to extensions. You know, they're flirting with DeAndre Hopkins. I think that Rhamondre Stevenson is the centerpiece of the Patriots offense. And so he's a running back that I want to draft this year aggressively.
All right, Leone, we do know that there's like some probability scale of signing a free agent. Maybe you can talk about how we build that into the projection / rankings, and then go ahead on Rhamondre.
Yeah, I mean, we have a certain amount of volume that goes to unlisted players on teams when we're worried about the volume. And I think you do have to think somewhat probabilistically where it might not happen, but it might, and you do want to bake in the chances a little bit. This isn't one I feel super strongly on. If you are really confident that Rhamondre has the stranglehold as a 3-down back, and particularly that pass catching role, I totally get Silva's ranking. I think from our perspective, we're a little bit concerned there. And if you're concerned there, then you start to look at a team that's bottom 10 in terms of their average spread over the course of the season, bottom 10 in terms of the average team total over the course of the season. And if you get a volume dependent back who isn't the primary or bulk pass catcher on a team that's not going to score a lot on an offense that's at risk, like those are historically the type of running back bets that you want to avoid at like the 2-3 turn. So we're leaning a little bit on Thorman and like some of the projections team. Also, forgive me, I meant to shout this out right at the beginning, but shout out like Jack Miller and Mark Dankenbrink who've done a great job in helping us grind these inputs. But yeah, so that's the downside, but I do see the upside where if you don't think they're going to sign someone and that Rhamondre is going to catch all the passes, then Silva's ranking makes sense.
I sense a little bit of capitulation there from Leone. I disagree with Silva at 19 overall, but I think his argument was more sound on Rhamondre. So I'll go ahead and give the victory to Silva there. Let's move to TJ Hawkinson. Machine 55 overall on TJ Hawkinson. Silva 41 overall. I'll let the machine go first this time on Mr. TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah, I mean, this is one where I also might capitulate a little bit. I do see the upside here in TJ Hawkinson. The target shares once he got to Minnesota were so good. I do think, you know, going back to the Jordan Addison thing that we had talked about on the podcast prior, that Addison's going to be more of a threat for targets than Adam Thielen was, but ultimately it's a really condensed offense. They're going to throw, especially in terms of pass attempt volume, it's going to be well above league average. They're probably going to get in shootouts. You know, this was a team that their record was great last year, but their point differential wasn't. And I think it might be a similar thing this year in terms of point differential. So I like Hawkinson, especially on full PPR sites and tight end premium sites where that volume can really start to get him closer to, you know, an Andrews type, for example, who might be a bit more there on efficiency. So I like Hawkinson quite a bit. I think 40 is a little rich for a half PPR site, but I don't have, you know, a strong anti-Hawkinson take.
Yeah. Hawkinson ADP currently 52. Silva is at 41. Go ahead on TJ Hawkinson, Silva.
I mean, I think that Leone actually kind of just laid out the case. And I would just add in that I think it's 12 or 13 games. TJ Hawkinson last year played with the Vikings. Like they shoved volume down his throat. His pace, his 17-game pace during that time span was over 100 catches. So it seems like Leone's a little bit, behind me on Hawkinson, obviously ahead of me on Jordan Addison. So, I mean, I think it maybe comes down to that a little bit.
Yeah. You guys can go back and listen to Market Monday. I spent a few minutes giving my take on TJ Hawkinson. Again, I think he is a legit threat to be the #1 overall tight end if you think Travis Kelce falls off.
I have him as the clear #3 tight end, or not super clear, but fairly clear #3 tight end behind Kelce and Andrews, ahead of Kittle and Goddard.
Yeah. And man, I mean, Hawkinson's usage inputs when he was with the Vikings last year were not all that different than Travis Kelce's from a target share. From an ADOT perspective, he obviously is not as good. After the catch, quarterback play is worse. Red zone role is worse. But still, man, awesome role for TJ Hawkinson on the Vikings.
Yeah, and he is, again, I mean, one of the guys that has a bigger discrepancy between half PPR and full PPR ranks for us. And at tight end, a lot of times that works the opposite. Like guys like Kyle Pitts and George Kittle are more efficiency-based guys. So as you start to get into full PPR formats, the gap between Hockenson and them, like it goes opposite directions. Like that's a much better format for Hockenson, and so actually a worse format for a lot of these other kind of mid-high tier tight ends.
All right. Let's go to Jerry Jeudy. Machine is at 52 overall. Silva is a bit more out of line with the market at 39 overall on Mr. Jeudy. We've had some Broncos wide receiver discussions internally. Silva is out on a bit of an island, I think, with some anti-Cortland Sutton stuff, which is interesting. Silva, go ahead on Jerry Jeudy, 39 overall.
Yeah, I'm just out on Cortland Sutton. I think he showed poorly last year. The team tried to get rid of him. The team goes in and trades up for Marvin Mims, exercises a very expensive option on Jerry Jeudy. I've always been a Jerry Jeudy guy. He's had some high ankle sprain stuff, which will absolutely torch your season. I'm betting on him to stay healthy and have a breakout year under Sean Payton. And so that's why I'm kind of pushing my chips in. We talked about him, and I think they clipped it from the 150 show, the video guys. I don't know. I mean, I'm betting on a breakout year for Jerry Jeudy, period.
I think sometimes what happens is there's these narratives that exist for a reason, but then it's hard to like translate them into probabilities. And for me, that's what's happening with Jeudy and Sutton. And, you know, on Underdog right now, Jeudy is going about where Evan has him. So it's not that outlier of a ranking, but all the signs point towards Jeudy over Sutton, but they're going like 6 rounds apart when last year Sutton was going 2 rounds before Jeudy. And we're coming off a year where Jeudy caught 67 balls on 110 targets. Sutton caught 64 balls on 109 targets. And I just wonder if we're pushing, I don't necessarily feel even super confident in this, but I just wonder if we're pushing the narrative too far about everything Evan said is true about Sutton and why you'd be worried. But is that enough to take Jeudy earlier than we took him last year and now to take Cortland Sutton around 10? That's where I'm just not sure. I'm just not confident enough in that narrative to invest such an early pick in Jeudy and to totally bury Sutton.
Yeah. Tough one. I'm going to give the victory to Silva there, more of a micro-based take than a market-based take there from Silva, which I appreciate. But yeah, it is really interesting. I'm really looking forward to camp. I talked about it some on Market Monday. Tim Patrick is here. Also, they're talking about using Greg Dulcich as a joker. And so when you start to get all these guys involved and you have questions about how good Russ really is, man, Jerry Jeudy that high scares me a little bit. But I'll give the victory to Silva there. Another wide receiver in the AFC West, Mike Williams, Machine 43rd overall, Silva 30th overall. Silva, I'll let you go first here, being very high on Mr. Big Mike.
Well, I think that one thing that Leone and I clearly agree on is that we want to be in on the Chargers this year. He talked about Quentin Johnston, and I capitulated on our first show, Man versus Machine show. I don't expect him to do it here to capitulate on Mike Williams, because he's got Mike Williams pretty darn high. I mean, 43 is pretty darn high. I just have him higher, and that's because I think that betting on the in-place rapport with Justin Herbert, what we've seen Big Mike do in spurts when he's been healthy, the health reports on him coming back from last season have been positive so far. He's like the clear like downfield clasher, and I think we're going to spread out the ADOT this year for Justin Herbert. Quentin Johnston is more the rat guy, and then Keenan Allen is the underneath guy. I think that Mike Williams benefits from the lengthened ADOT more than any other Charger receiver. I don't mind moving him toward Leone, because I think I can still get him at 35, 36, 37, 38. But again, I think that Leone and I like just straight up agree about the Chargers, and he's baking it in more into his Quentin Johnston ranking. And I went like real aggressive on Big Mike.
Yeah. Big Mike's ADP is currently around 46 overall on Underdog. We've been ahead of market on him in the projection-based rankings. Leone, go ahead on Mike Williams.
I mean, agree with everything Silva said. Directionally, we're aligned. I think, his ranks may be more aggressive than it needs to be, but we're both very pro Mike Williams. And even looking at he's worse on full PPR sites, but not that much worse if you're looking at the breakout of this offense and the potential here. And his ADP on FFPC is 66 overall. So there's a lot of room to get Mike Williams right now.
Yeah.
He's one of my highest exposure players, early on in best ball season.
All right. Can only call that one a draw. Let's go to Rachaad White. This has been interesting, man. And it's tough to call Rachaad White a boomer back because he's a young second-year player. But it seems like a lot of the spreadsheet socials have been out on Rachaad White because with Tom Brady last year, he just was not very good. And now he has to play with Baker Mayfield. So, Leone, I'll let you go first here. Machine has Rachaad White 73rd. Silva is up at 57 on Rachaad White. Yeah,
this is one where I do think sometimes the analytics community is a little too invested in short-term efficiency stuff. So I could see where you could make some excuses for Rachaad White last year. I mean, Leonard Fournette was quite terrible as well. The offensive line seemed like it struggled for Tampa Bay. The whole offense struggled. With that said, he was still pretty bad in terms of efficiency in both the pass game and the ground game. And this is one of those projectable volume situations where it looks like he's got to be the clear guy. But if he's not that good, someone else could come in. They could still, this is another spot. It wouldn't be shocking if they signed someone before the start of the season. I know Gretch on our offseasons podcast pointed that out. So, and the offense overall, the high value touches for running back are going to come way down than they have in the past couple of years. You're not going to get all the Tom Brady checks downs to running backs. You're going to have lower play volume. You're going to have lower scoring expectations. So I just don't think he kills me, even if we are maybe a touch conservative on the rank.
All right. Evan, go ahead on Rachaad White.
I agree. Actually, when I did my first run for the second 150, I had Rachaad White much closer to Leone. And then I just kind of, looking at the depth chart, right now, I mean, Chase Edmonds, he was one of the worst backs in the league last year. Keyshawn Vaughn has really shown nothing. Patrick Laird, it's and then I wound up moving up Rachaad White. And it might have been something that I didn't even believe that I should do. But just looking at his in-house backfield competition, I was like, he should be higher. I don't like his fit with Baker Mayfield. You're right. He wasn't particularly good as a rookie in any phase of the game. I'd be fine moving him down. I can just capitulate on this one.
All right. A capitulation from Silva on Rachaad White. The big concern for me on Rachaad White is that it was an awesome spot for him last year. Leonard Fournette is not that good. Tom Brady is just a printing press for running back fantasy points. And Rachaad White still couldn't really do it, and that's a concern for me for sure on Rachaad White as we head to a season in which the Bucs, at least on paper to me, should be tanking. All right. Last one I want to do here quickly is the 3 Seahawks wide receivers. We'll do them all at once. Silva is very high on DK Metcalf, 21 overall. Very high on Tyler Lockett, 33 overall. Machine is well behind on both of those. However, Silva is way behind on Jackson Smith and Jigba, 100 overall, while the Machine is at 62 overall. So, Evan, maybe I'll let you set the stage here. Really high on DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, really low on JSN.
Yeah, because I think that we are going to get a lengthened ADOT from Seattle this year, which was a little bit of a dink and dunk offense, and there's going to be a ton of touchdown regression in play for DK Metcalf. So DK Metcalf is a guy that I'm coming out guns blazing. I think that he has overall wide receiver 1. I think that that's within his range of potential outcomes. I'm in on the Seahawks period. In Geno Smith's second year, that gave him the big extension. And I also and again back to the ADOT, these stud rookie tackles that they stole in the 2022 draft. They're entering their second year. They built up the interior line a little bit. I think that Geno Smith, after what he showed in his first season as the full-time starter, I think that they're going to have more trust in him, and DK Metcalf is going to make more big plays down the football field.
All right.
And then Tyler Lockett we've talked about him. I know it's 31. That's a little bit scary. But I mean, he's still playing at a really high level. I think he went over 1,000 yards. He scores 8 to 10 touchdowns every year. And then Jackson Smith and Jigba, I'm not as high on. Only played in 2 games last year. Was hurt a lot. Not a ton of production other than like little pop-ups at Ohio State. And so I have him at 100 overall. And I'm sticking with the veterans on the Pete Carroll team, riding them hard.
Yeah, it is an interesting spot. We've seen some boomer ball out of Seattle in years past, Leone, and now you're asking them to feed 3 wide receivers. Go ahead on Seattle wideouts.
Yeah, I mean, someone who I respect a lot said about Jackson Smith and Jigba, Amon-Ra St. Brown clone will play massive role right away. That was our Evan Silva who said that about Jackson Smith and Jigba. So if you believe that, and just knowing how rookies perform over the course of the season, I think he can step in and be more target competition for Metcalf and Lockett than people realize, because he's going to play that slot role. And even if they try to be a higher ADOT offense, the reason this offense worked for Seattle last year is Geno was completing like nearly 70% of his passes. And I think JSN is going to help him continue to do that a lot. So he's too talented to not cut in to Metcalf and Lockett. And then, it's tough to take Metcalf crazy early when the past few years, every year, we're like, he's going to pull away from Tyler Lockett, and he just can't do it. And now you've got this competition, and we still have Metcalf, the machine side of things, pulling away from Lockett, but not by, but then you've got JSN there. So it's just, I don't know. It's just it is a difficult projection overall, but ultimately if you're bullish JSN, I just don't see a Geno Smith, Pete Carroll led offense being quite that explosive to like a Chargers one where we're in on like all these Chargers pieces. I will say that both Silva and I are pretty high on Kenneth Walker as part of this Seattle offense. We both like him a lot. Think, the rushing efficiency upside is huge for him, but I don't know. I just think those tags that Silva has attached to Lockett and Metcalf are too rich for the downside here.
Yeah. I mean, machine 78 on Tyler Lockett to me is too low. Silva 33 on Tyler Lockett to me is too high. So I'm not sure what to do here exactly. I'm going to have to give it a draw. I think the Seattle stuff is so hard, and we see it here with so much discrepancy in the rankings, especially on JSN and what JSN's role will be. So I'll go ahead and give that a draw there. All right. That's going to do it for part 2 of the Man vs. Machine podcast. Be sure you're listening to Establish the Edge. That's Leone's podcast. The podcasts he does with Gretch are like, man, if you guys are serious about fantasy football, you should be listening to the Establish the Edge pods with Gretch on the projection preview side of things. Be sure you're following at Evan Silva on Twitter.
Great listen for road trips too.
Yes.
Yeah.
At Evan Silva, at Adam Levitan, at Establish the Run, all one word, and at 2hats1. Mike, Draft Kit is live on the site right now. Rankings and context you need for everything around best ball, dynasty, and season long. For Evan, for the machine, Michael Leone, for the man, Evan Silva, for producer Luke, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.